My name's Ian Rice, co-founder of EnviroCan and SC Laboratories. We offer a third-party certification service to the cannabis producers. We start with a facility certification to ensure best practices, compliance with regulation, and a farm management plan is established. And it's a really nice value add to ensure going into regulation that your site is ready for to be licensed or is licensable, and that you have a plan in order to start production at a commercial level. Our second level, which we call the EnviroCan certification, is a certification for the conventional farmer, non-organic is what I mean. And what we're doing here is, again, capturing a facility certification that ensures best practices, compliance with regulation, and then we get into actually certifying the crop itself. The inspectors will go out, and for every 1,000 to 2,000 square feet of production, for every crop we certify, we will take a leaf sample and run that for just a pesticide test. So when the crop or product shows up to market with the EnviroCan logo, the market and consumers can rest assured that it's coming from a compliant farm and a farm that has a farm management plan, and that they're not using any banned chemicals. So it's a product that is ready for them to use. Then we get into the organic conversation, and specifically certifying cannabis organic, which is technically impossible. There is no organic or accredited organic agency out there that will go out and certify that production facility or the products that are coming from it. So what we've done, we've mirrored what is required of an organic farmer. We even use the same inspectors, and they go out, they inspect the site, they verify the practices are to an organic standard. And then we added the layer of, again, the every 1,000 to 2,000 square feet of production being sampled for pesticide testing only. We cannot certify organic, so we came up with the word EnviroGanic, so nobody gets in trouble, but it still is a way to qualify the hard work and efforts of the organic farmers, and the layer of additional pesticide testing. So when consumers or manufacturers or distributors see a product that comes in EnviroCan certified or EnviroGanic, they know, essentially where it came from, the hard work that went into it, and that it's ready for them to use for whatever purposes they need. It's really about going, in my opinion, and helping these growers become farmers, and it's really about helping to qualify clean cannabis in a market that is really thirsty for that. And the unfortunate scenario of lab test results not always representing the batch that is being provided to the market is something we're aware of. And this is a service that we hope helps to answer that question, as well as provide a value add not only for these producers, but for the end user who hopefully will be willing to spend a little extra money on a product that they know is clean and coming from a production field that is taking care of the environment, their workers, and them as the consumer. I mean, so the official statement that we kind of presented is something that kind of answers our role in the industry and how test results, unfortunately, are not always the correct representation of that product or batch that's being tested. And that's not an isolated scenario to SC Laboratories. So if a consumer thinks that test results right now in the California unregulated market always mean that batch or that lot or that edible item, I think that's a little naive. And not to say anybody's naive, right, because that's a little harsh, but I think having a real understanding of the dynamics and role that a lab takes, hopefully, some of the words and conversation that has happened today, some of the ways in which we're reaching out to the community, We'll be making this official statement, hopefully, by being transparent and being a part of the conversation, and if they can reflect and look at the history of SC Laboratories and see the efforts we've made as far as identifying those 12 pesticides and chemicals right out the gate before any other lab, and working with the largest brands and the smallest brands in the industry for 7 years now. I think the question should be more on the brands that they're looking for and not getting those results. The testing that is conducted here at SC Laboratories belongs to those clients, right? And so, their abilities to either report that to the community or not is entirely up to them. We've taken a role as far as making results public, something that we don't do unless our clients ask us to do that. And we take a very strict role in helping educate people that are looking for education and being able to clean up those practices. I think that's something we've been committed to since day one, now for 7 years, and I don't think we'll ever diverge from that.
Whenever you're testing flower, I mean, again, like to our earlier conversation, there's so many variables, like was it grown indoor or outdoor? If it was grown indoor, was it grown sea of green method? Was it grown using like Gavita lights, which just kind of can help substantially to increase standardization between buds, but based on how the plant was grown, how the plant was pruned, it's like there's so many variables that can play to whether or not there's like a 10% variance from the bottom bud to the top bud, or whether there's a 2% variance, and so what we've seen with clients that are more moving their cultivation, seeking out ways to standardize each bud that's in a batch of their herb, they've taken incredible measures to de-leaf their plants, exposing light penetration to all parts of the canopy, and using certain lighting technologies like Gavita lighting, and keeping the plant height grown indoor under some type of kind of containment. It's like because with indoor lighting, every foot below the bulb is an exponential loss in lumen output. And that lumen loss is going to be a direct contributor to variance from the potency of bud from one part of the plant that might be getting more lumens to another part of the plant that might be getting no lumens. And so we see variance kind of happen from within different parts of the plant, much greater also indoor versus outdoor, because outdoor, the distance traveled from the sun to get to the plant, it's very different, or it's a very small difference from whether it's shining out of top cola or lower part of the plant. Then again, so it's different, I guess, in the light distribution from the sun, obviously, than from indoor lighting. There's no mimicking the sun, grown indoor. Outdoor you can see kind of less variance from top bud to bottom bud. But then again, how well is the plant being pruned throughout its growth cycle? If it's just a huge kind of canopy of leaf that's never been de-leafed or plucked to expose light to the canopy, even again with indoor, the buds closer to inside the plant that aren't getting any light, that are super premature, yeah, you're going to see a significant swing in variance from the potency of that flower.
I think I'm a big fan of self-regulation as opposed to government regulation. I think there's a balance there in that, what I just said. I think sometimes government regulation is more appropriate, but I think in this case self-regulation was the necessary steps to help clean up some of the unregulated industry. And so I'm very confident that our top level EnviroRganic tier certification will mirror essentially what any organic certification requirements are on an international level. And so I feel like when that time comes, perhaps that certification will just become an organic certification. We'll be able to drop that word EnviroRganic, and I welcome that time, and I welcome the opportunity to work alongside some of these more established organic accredited agencies. We offer a unique component to our certification in that rigorous on-site sampling, in that that's uniquely different from the organic sector, because only 5% of that world goes through a lab test, whereas 100% of my farms that we certify go through a lab audit for every single crop we certify. So when that time comes, and if they choose to, certify cannabis farms, which I welcome, that will be really exciting, because it's, in my opinion, it's all about encouraging best practices. And we certainly hope that we're a certification vehicle that is a value add, in the marketability of products out in the world. We hope that consumers and people see value in, the transparency and being able to see more or less the story of that farm through a logo like that. Sure. Every lab tech that we have at SC Labs, pretty much anybody behind the scenes on the science level has at least a 4-year degree in chemistry or microbiology, up to a PhD level.
Okay.
That's a really good question. I think without a doubt, I think we're ready, right? I think cannabis, in my opinion, needs to get to more people. I think it needs to be a plant that is utilized more, and up to the level of the discussion regarding hemp, right? I think we're looking at a whole transition as far as this plant and what it's opening up. I hope to one day build a house out of hemp fruit. That's like a dream of mine. And hopefully that's something that can be achieved in the next 2 or 5 years. So I think there's certainly a lot of issues and unfortunate scenarios that are coming out of prohibition, but it's nothing that we cannot we can't figure out as a community, and hopefully do ahead of government regulation, right? And do it as a community with sensible regulations and sensible policies. And really, like I was saying earlier, hopefully we can commercialize this plant differently than how we've commercialized most other industries. And I think we have a good opportunity to do that, and I'd like to see it happen sooner than later. Relationship is completely separate companies. We share a great kind of synergistic relationship with them as far as our results are directly integrated to that platform. We've been working with them for almost 6 years with some major educational campaigns, creating cannabis science videos, kind of explaining what's happening on the back end of the lab and what we're looking for and how it's useful for the market. So no structural relationship as far as ownership or anything like that. They're just a wonderful marketing agency and value to the cannabis community across the world that we've been very lucky to participate in. And the very beginning of SC Laboratories opening, they were instrumental in the success of the lab because of that relationship, and as they've been for many companies in the cannabis world. So no ownership there, and just a real wonderful relationship with that company.
And in so many ways, also, we give such deep credit and props to Weed Maps in, how much before there was ever a demand for testing in the marketplace. When we first opened, Ian and I were going around, trying to convince of why there was a need to test to different producers and processors, manufacturers, dispensary owners, who are used to selling weed in one direction. So it was almost an uphill battle for many years, trying to basically convince people why there was a need to test to show and qualify the herb you're growing or selling. When people are normally used to selling weed one way, asking them to pay for to give us some weed to test, and then to also pay us money to do the testing was a really foreign thing. And so when we first ended up partnering with Weed Maps in this way to help bring about the importance of testing to the marketplace and the community, it really brought out a lot of the intrinsic marketing value of testing your herb and having that be able to be displayed on a menu on Weed Maps, because it really started to show people that go above and beyond in their practices, and how their quality stands out above and beyond other people's products. They were able to early on kind of capture some of the marketing benefit from that on Weed Maps, which in a lot of ways really began to drive the demand for testing cannabis in the cannabis community, period. And this is like many years before regulation, many years before there was ever really kind of a thought that pesticides in your product, are a bad thing, and if somebody ever failed for a pesticide test, they'd just hide the test and go to continue to sell it. You know, times have changed a lot, you know, in public accountability and demand for kind of quality, clean products, you know, has really shifted, you know, so much within, you know, the producer and processor community to, you know, strive to be able to, you know, do testing so that they can make a clean product, so that they can now prove to the community of consumers that they are, you know, of trust, you know, and of integrity. So you can say enough good things about that relationship, and in how much it really started to kind of prime the California community and the market, and why testing is even relevant.